afternoon, everyone. Today I'm doing a presentation, but it's slightly different to how I normally would present something. Basically what I'm going to do today is give you some thoughts about the topic of quality. So what I think about that, and some of the things I've learned over the last couple of months by reading certain materials. So first of all, when you think of quality, what's the first thing that pops into your head, or what's some of the things, I'd like you to try and picture some of the things that you think of what is a quality object or a quality item or a quality process. Is it Hyundai versus BMW, or is it Nescafe Blend 43 versus the Guatemala El Zapote Geisha Blend currently served at Bunker? Just want you to capture that in your mind, just think about what you think quality is. Because what is quality? Is it crafted? Is it bespoke? Is it? When I think of it, I find it very hard to define. I find it very hard to put words to what it is that makes something quality. Sure, it costs a lot of money potentially. That doesn't necessarily define that it's a quality object or a quality piece of software, for example. But somehow, when you get something that's quality, you know it when you see it. When you think, yeah, this iPhone, there's some quality about it. It just works. Often in terms of software development, we talk about the trade-off triangle or the trade-off pyramid. You've probably seen this before. Basically, you have time when you're developing software or a design or any type of website. You have money, how much the thing's going to cost, and you have quality. What's the end product going to look like? Generally, you're asked to pick two. So time and money, time and quality, money and quality, and the trade-off is the third one. If someone came to you and said, for this project that we're about to do, we have to trade quality, what would that mean? I found that pretty hard to understand probably. When I started thinking about it, I thought, what would that actually mean? Does it mean we cut corners? Does it mean we ignore bugs in our software? Does it mean we fake things? Does it mean we just smash it out? We've got 3 weeks and only $1,000 bucks. We've got to smash this thing out. Do we reduce the scope of what we're building? Do we ignore how well it's going to scale? Not 100% sure, but that's what I'd like to explore. So, I've come across quite a few resources in the last, I'd say 6 months, just things that keep popping up that define this. And I'd like to just present those to you now. One of the funny things I heard was the only valid measurement of code quality is WTFs, what the fucks per minute, when in code review. I thought that was quite cool. Good code, only 2 per minute, bad code. This is shit. Probably one of the best articles that I've read, and I think a lot of what I'm trying to talk about here is based around, is this article on Medium called Velocity versus Quality, written by one of the developers who actually crafted the Medium website and application when they first started. I don't know if you've heard of Medium, but it's a publishing tool. We can write blogs and you can comment on things. And they talked a lot about this idea of velocity and quality. They broke down quality into 2 things, implementation depth and code quality. And what I'd like to do is try and explore what each of those are. So implementation depth is generally things like performance optimization. Can my code scale to handle 1 million users per minute? Does it need to? Abstractions. I'm going to write this piece of software so that it can be used over and over again in many different ways. Scale. Similar to performance, but will my software handle, again, plenty of users or being served from different areas of the globe? Implementation depth, I believe, is generally just scope. So, more things, less things. I think it's pretty simple, but I think sometimes we miss dividing what quality is in this way. So what I'd like to do is, for us to think about quality in terms of scope. How much can we do, not how well we're going to do it. Pretty much just summed up my presentation. So I'd like to talk a little bit about code quality and what some of the things that I believe it is. I was thinking about giving a disclaimer because I'm not the be-all and end-all expert on this topic, but I'd just like to talk about it from my personal experience about what I believe code quality is. It's writing tests. It's taking the time to make sure your code is crafted. It has certain style, it has your own style, it also follows other styles. Formatting, variable name, just consistency, or in other words, care. You put care into your code. And really that's what I'm trying to get at, is when people are asking you to trade off quality, they're not asking you to trade off care. Recently I've been reading a couple of these books that have been recommended by other developers here at What If or at Expedia. I haven't started on the Pragmatic Programmer, but I've working my way through Clean Code, and you may have heard of these books. They're pretty traditional programming, software development, pretty well-known books, but they talk a lot about the craft of development. Sometimes we get focused on, or sometimes people are focused on the end product, but I liked this snippet or this quote from the Pragmatic Programmer, which I'm going to read, that talks about the quarry worker. You know, they can just be making stones, or they can be thinking about the big picture and put care into their work. Another quote which sums it up quite nicely from Clean Code is this quote here by Michael Feathers: "Clean code always looks like it was written by someone who cares. There's nothing obvious that you can do to make it better." Now that's all well and good. Picking up someone's code and thinking, yep, someone who's written this previously, whether or not you understand it, it looks like they've put some thought into it. But the other thing that got me thinking is often we talk about the lean cycle and how can we get through this cycle as quick as possible when we're building things. And sometimes that jars a little bit with the idea of putting care and time into something. So to connect those dots, I guess, in my mind, I just had a look, or while I was reading Clean Code book, they talked a little bit about, or something jigged in my mind, about some of the foundations of Lean. And through the presentations that Rob and Matt gave here a while ago, sorry, I'm jumping ahead, but essentially what do we do when we're spinning away in the cycle of Lean, and we have to also take into consideration our data quality. So some of the foundations to the Lean principles you may have heard from Robin was the TPM, or the Total Productive Maintenance Cycle, which was the foundation of the Lean manufacturing idea, was the idea of the 5S principles. I'm not going to claim to know how to pronounce each of those, but essentially taken from a lot of the Lean manufacturing ideas. Before we jump through those, I'd just like to, I guess, explain that I'm just going to summarise each of these ideas and principles and try to put my slant on how I believe each of those can connect into what we do when we're developing software, when we're writing code, or when we're just doing our job, no matter what that is. So the first principle is SIRI, or sort. And basically that principle is knowing where things are, having labels. In terms of these principles, the idea was that to reduce waste and to reduce cycle time through manufacturing, these principles were there to help people organise their desk space, their work area, to keep things flowing. But I still believe that they connect to what we do now in terms of working on computers. So sorting, keeping your file names, folder structures, your computer tidy. Using correct names when you're naming methods. Variables, the same sort of thing, not just using a variable or blah, but actually taking some time to consider how readable is the code that I'm writing. An example of that is using methodologies like MCSS, which I guess create a framework for good naming conventions. For example, by looking at this code, it could potentially do the same thing, even though one of them is green. But if you look at those two pieces of code, you can tell that the person who's written the bottom one cares a little bit more about their craft than the red box box, which is now green because it's been overridden by an important. The next principle is cycling of tidiness, keeping place for everything and everything in its place. Again, similar to the other principle, they're all very similar, but keeping your file system organised, knowing how to get to that project as quick as possible. Having dot files, keeping your computer customised so that you can get around the terminal, get around the file system, get things up and running without too much thought. Knowing your IDE, I believe it's pretty important to know the tools that we use. If you're using Sublime Text or IntelliJ or any other IDE, there's plenty of resources out there to know or to learn shortcuts. One thing I always try to do is memorize the next shortcut. Once I've memorized that, I move on to the next shortcut within Sublime Text, and after a while you feel like you're just moving your way through it with ease. Same with Photoshop. One thing I always used to do when firing in Photoshop is organize all the windows, the layers and everything, and basically save my own workspace. And the operating system, just having files in the right place so that you don't have to go searching for that project once you come back to it. Kind of had the picture of a very organised workshop in my mind. I was going to find a picture, but I just wanted to keep things moving, of a really unorganised workshop. You know that if you said to this person, I need a 10mm spanner to undo my wheel on my bike, they'd be like, yep, here it is. If you have a workshop that's just a mess everywhere, you just don't know. It's a very similar principle, but say so is cleanliness, and I applied this principle to code. So when you're writing code, don't have too many comments, don't keep things nice and clean for the next person. Remember, you're an author, you're writing basically code for the next developer that comes along. Keeping things indented in a consistent way, there's nothing worse than seeing indentations all over the place. Following a style guide. If the company that you're working for doesn't have a style guide, creating your own, following that. Using tools like a linter or your own IDE to keep the code clean. And potentially your desk, keeping your desk clean. Looking at this code, does it look like the developer potentially cares about what they're doing? And it's not that uncommon to see code just all over the place. Does the job, sure, but in the long term, is it going to help keep things flowing? However, in saying that, keeping things clean, there's always exceptions. So I don't want to be dictating here. As Albert Einstein once said, if a cluttered desk is a sign of a cluttered mind, what then is a sign of an empty desk? And the second last principle is Saiketsu, standardization. And each of these flow on from each other, basically setting standards, setting disciplines and sticking to them. Things like style guide linting, using tabs and spaces consistently in your IDE, using the same casing. Or it pointed me to a resource the other day of the Airbnb style guide, something like that, implementing something like that within our team or organisation. It's great. I'd be interested to see what the Expedia conventions are for code formatting and style guides. I haven't looked into that, but it'd be interesting to see if there is a style guide for coding. And last principle, Shotsuke, if I pronounce that correctly, is basically summing up all of the disciplines. So constantly refining and evaluating what you're doing, looking to be better at everything every day. Always looking to improve. Are there new practices? Are there new tools? For example, the Atom editor has recently been out and potentially it's better than Sublime. Are there better languages? Recently Node's been forked into a new version called IOJS. Refactor, refactor, refactor. Never be satisfied with what you're producing. It's good enough, it's not good enough. So in summing that up, I guess looking at the opposite, what happens when we stop caring about our craft or our code that we're writing? A good example or analogy is a house. This house didn't just become like this. It started off by someone, potentially a window just being cracked accidentally. Someone thought, I'm not going to bother cleaning that up. Next minute, another window broke. Potentially people have left, and before you know it, people are intentionally breaking windows and graffitiing the front of the house. Things don't just happen like this. They start by very, very small actions. And I guess if you think in terms of the opposite, can you picture a code base that gets better with time and not worse with time? Finally, in summing that up, taken from the Clean Code book, another analogy which I think started in the American Boy Scouts was the analogy or the principle of always leaving the campground better than you found it. When you're finished with the job, have I left this code base, this file, cleaner, and does it read well for the next author, or as an author, have I written this in a way that it's readable for the readers when they come next? And that's it. Any questions?
What is an IDE or linting?
An IDE is essentially just where you write your code, like Sublime or IntelliJ.
What does it stand for?
Can't think of that off the top of my head.
You mind?
Something development environment.
That sounds correct. So I can get back to you on that one.
It's alright, I was just didn't pick it up in the context.
Yeah, generally what we call Sublime, the text editor. So,
Brackets.
yeah.
Also, when you're referring to style guide, are you specifically talking about coding?
Not necessarily.
So that Airbnb example was.
It was a code example, but I guess thinking about all of these things, it doesn't necessarily, it could apply to anything you do. That's the intention behind it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was just wondering because I'm not sure what a coding style guide would look like, so that's just something I should look at, I suppose.
Show you that.
Is the style guide a link?
Yes.
Because otherwise it didn't match the standard of the rest of it's a different color.
Probably a
than it was
slide.
the page where you were talking about standards.
You can, yeah.
Just curious.
That was a, yeah. I could have gone through that. I just actually had less time than I thought.
Yeah. You got it in without 20 minutes, 25 minutes.
Yeah, I know. Last night I was just like struggling. But
Yeah.
I did rush. Any other questions? And the point here is that if someone puts care into making a cheeseburger, it could actually be pretty good.
That was a good reference.
That does actually look quite nice, doesn't it?
That's the one at the start.
Yeah.
Cool. Alright, thanks very much.